It was a kind of summer that settled into your bones and made everything feel slow and sticky. Kids ran barefoot through the streets of the small town of Maplewood, chasing each other with water balloons, giggling as they passed lawn sprinklers. In the distance, the familiar jingle of the ice cream truck drifted through the air like a promise. It was an old, cheerful tune that could make even the most stoic adult smile just a little. The ice cream man everyone knew was named Charlie Reynolds. He wasn't young, probably somewhere in his late 50s, but he had that kind of agelessness about him, like he'd always been there, with his pressed white shirt, red suspenders, and the same straw hat perched on his head every day. He was a staple of the neighborhood. Every afternoon at exactly 3 o'clock, his truck would rumble down Cedar Street, playing that tune, and the children would come running with sticky dollar bills and wide eyes. Charlie had been doing this for years. He knew everyone's favorite order by heart. Little Emma Harper always wanted a cherry snow cone. Tyler Davis, the neighborhood troublemaker, couldn't resist the firecracker popsicle. And sweet old Mrs. Jenkins down the street, she'd wave him down just to buy a push-up pop and ask him about his day, even though she hardly had any teeth left to enjoy it. But no one really knew Charlie. He was friendly, polite, and always smiling. But he never talked about his past. If someone asked where he was from, he'd just say, "A little ways out west," and change the subject. He never joined community barbecues or town parades. He never dated, never had visitors, and lived alone in a modest trailer on the outskirts of town. He kept to himself, and people respected that. Until one day, things began to change. It started when a stranger came to Maplewood, a tall man in a suit, which already made him look out of place among the tank tops and flip-flops. He had sharp eyes and a serious expression that didn't soften even when Charlie handed him a free ice cream sandwich. "Name's Blake Mason," he said, showing Charlie a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm looking for someone. Maybe you can help." Charlie looked at him calmly, not missing a beat. "I'll help if I can, but I don't get around much." Blake leaned against the side of the truck, glancing around. "You ever hear of a man named Richard Alcott?" Charlie blinked. The name seemed to hang in the air for a second too long. Then he shook his head slowly. "Can't say that I have." But something shifted in his face, something so subtle that most people wouldn't notice. But Blake did. That conversation didn't go unnoticed. The kids playing nearby saw the two men talk, and while it didn't seem like a big deal, word travels fast in small towns. By that evening, folks were already whispering at the diner. Who was the man in the suit? What did he want with Charlie? And more importantly, why had Charlie looked nervous? The next few days were quieter. Charlie still did his rounds, still handed out popsicles with a smile, but he didn't hum his usual tune. His laugh didn't come as easily. And at night, when no one was around, he'd sit by his trailer and stare at the stars like he was waiting for something, or someone. The curiosity in town grew. A few of the older kids, driven by boredom and the thrill of mystery, decided to dig a little deeper. Tyler Davis, always the first to lead trouble, hatched a plan. He convinced his friend Max and little Emma's older sister Jordan to help him follow the ice cream man one evening after his shift. Charlie always left the truck parked at the town's edge, near a line of trees that bordered the forest. From there, he'd walk the half-mile path to his trailer. That night, the kids kept their distance, hiding behind trees, careful not to make a sound. What they saw surprised them. Charlie didn't go straight home. He made a turn and walked deeper into the woods, along a path that looked rarely used. They followed as quietly as they could, holding their breath every time a twig snapped. After about 10 minutes, they came upon a clearing. In the center stood an old, crumbling cabin. The roof was half caved in, vines curling around the windows like fingers. Charlie stood at the doorway, staring at it. Then he did something that chilled them. He spoke, not loudly and not to them, but it was clear he was talking to someone or something inside. "I didn't come here to hide forever," he said softly, "but I thought I could make it work." He was silent for a long time after that. The kids were frozen, too scared to move. Finally, Charlie turned and walked back the way he came. The kids sprinted in the opposite direction, their hearts racing. The next day, they told Jordan's dad, Officer Mike Turner. He was skeptical at first, but agreed to check it out. He drove out with another officer and found the cabin. It was abandoned, filled with dust and cobwebs. Nothing out of the ordinary, except for a rusted safe bolted to the floor beneath a rotten board. Inside the safe was a stack of documents. Old IDs, faded photos, newspaper clippings, and a badge. It was an old federal marshal's badge. The name inscribed on it, Richard Alcott. The town was buzzing the next morning. The connection was too obvious to ignore. Charlie Reynolds wasn't his real name. He was Richard Alcott, a former federal marshal. Charlie didn't deny it when Officer Turner asked him to come in for questioning. He sat in the station, calm and quiet, and told his story. Years ago, he had been a U.S. Marshal working undercover on a dangerous case, a major crime syndicate operating in several states. Drugs, weapons, money laundering, the works. Richard had spent years gathering evidence, risking his life, until finally, the government had enough to make arrests. The operation was successful, but it came at a cost. Richard's cover had been blown, and there was a price on his head. The feds offered witness protection, but Richard didn't trust it. Too many leaks, too many risks. So he disappeared on his own terms, changed his name, and started a new life in a quiet town where no one asked questions. I didn't want to run forever, he told Officer Turner, but I didn't want to die either. So I found Maplewood, and I stayed. Blake Mason, the man in the suit, wasn't a threat. He was a private investigator hired by one of the people Richard had once helped put away, a man just released on parole. Blake hadn't meant to bring danger. He was only looking for closure. But his presence stirred up old ghosts, and Richard knew it was only a matter of time before others came looking. The town had a choice to make. Turn Charlie into the authorities, risking that dangerous people might follow the trail, or protect him. Maplewood wasn't a town that liked outsiders meddling in their business, and Charlie, Richard, had become part of their fabric. He kept the kids, smiling through the heat of summer. He fixed bikes without charging a dime. He helped Mrs. Jenkins when her roof leaked and stayed up all night, once searching for a lost dog. The vote was unanimous. When the FBI finally showed up, tipped off by an anonymous source, the town said they hadn't seen anyone by that name. Just Charlie Reynolds, their ice cream man, who'd been part of the community for as long as they could remember. And they meant it. With a few changes, Charlie's life returned to normal. He stopped using his old name entirely. The cabin in the woods was quietly dismantled. The documents burned. Blake Mason left town with a quiet nod.